Yeah, so pretty straightforward from Eileen Gleeson. We weren't good enough. Méabh De Burca, how important is it? Nathan was making the point, are we overreacting? Is it only a friendly?
Well, it was a good time for it to happen if ever there was a good time to have a poor performance, and it certainly was that. I suppose it was a difficult one to kind of pinpoint what actually went wrong, because you would think, okay, it was maybe the Denise O'Sullivan factor, but also she was missing on Friday in Italy and they coped okay without her. I think losing Eve Fahey right before kickoff probably threw them a little bit maybe. She was so solid on Friday and, you know, they were missing that, I think, kind of commanding presence at the back, and they got that when Louise came on at half time.
Kathleen made the point that it was hard to put your finger on what exactly went wrong in the first half or who was to blame. But when you hook Kieran and Barrett at half time, does that point to the idea that Eileen Gleeson blames them for a little bit of the disjointedness in the first half?
I think there was always going to be changes, I suppose, when you're 2-0 down against a lower ranked team, and I think the obvious players are attackers that you mix it up. I think she took Diane Caldwell off as well at the back too.
She was injured, I think, was she?
I don't. Yeah, she got a stamp just before the half, so that could have been.
She looked like she was moving very wobbly. She could run when she had to run, but apart from that, she wasn't really trying to get up involved in the play at all. So I was glad to see her go off.
Yeah, and I think I mean, I thought I thought Barrett actually did pretty well. We just didn't utilise her pace, I think, enough. You know, the balls we were giving up to her weren't playing to her strengths and that. So I think in a way she may have been a little bit unlucky to come off, and we just didn't get much going up the left side. So obviously then Kieran was the victim in that case too.
Was that due to what Wales were doing on that left side? Because it's so clear that Ireland have a talisman, and other teams, kind of like Italy did last week, do try and, I guess, put a lot of attention on a McCabe on that side of the pitch. And when you're playing close to the sideline, it's probably easier to do that as well. So is that what Wales, should we be crediting Wales for how they managed to handle that threat? Or
yeah, I think they really targeted our left side. Actually, I think their fullbacks were overlapping all day, and one of the goals came from that. It was Roberts crossed it in, their left back then Woodham finished it, and yeah, I think they seemed to just get more joy up the right side. I don't know if that was a part of their game plan or not. Maybe with a new player, like obviously we changed it up having Kieran coming on in the left, but maybe that was part of their game plan, or just maybe that's how the game kind of the flow of the game went. But definitely it was an area I think we had a lot more joy attacking up our right, and same with them, they had joy attacking up their right.
Not to labour the point or anything, but like you mentioned there, the ball maybe to Barrett wasn't amazing, and the service she was getting wasn't ideal for her type of game. Do you think that she will be able to bring something to the Eileen Gleeson system that works, or do you think she's always going to struggle to justify her place in the team?
Yeah, it depends what the system is. Because at the moment we don't know, how they're going to play. It was obviously 4 at the back for against Italy, and same again for the first half last night. But we weren't even sliding balls through. Like there wasn't a 1-3 ball in the first half, and I suppose it does come back a little bit to missing Denise. You know, she's the one who really does always link up between midfield and forward. So. For sure we were missing that kind of creative, I think, energy, because although the girls in midfield worked really hard, I think that kind of creative spark was slightly missing. It came a bit more in the second half because Jessu went into the 10 role and she kind of managed to link up play, I thought, a little bit better in that case. But yeah, there was definitely just that final killer ball was missing last night.
Jessu was interesting talking about moving into that position last night after the game, because the big question mark is Denise Sullivan has never missed an international camp before. This is the first time we've never actually had to deal with the problem of not having her in that position. She's gone off injured, yes, but we've still had her for large, significant portions of games. And Jessu was asked about it afterwards. Does she think it's something that she could go into? And she said she actually prefers it as a position. She's far more comfortable there. On an Irish setup, it's always going to be difficult to plant someone like Denise O'Sullivan. You're always going to want her in there, but I do wonder if that's something that we can utilise a little bit more in games where we are looking for more of a creative energy to come on, and as Jessu improves and hopefully gets more time with West Ham, she can become that player, because she...
What position is it? Is it 8 or 10?
10 normally.
Okay.
Yeah, that's her preferred.
Can we get them both in the team?
I think so. I just think it'll probably be in different positions to watch she wants to play. It would probably be something similar to what we saw last night in the first half for where Jessu was playing. I thought she linked up really well with Heather Payne, and something I said this morning when I was chatting to Karen, that I think that is something that Ireland really should focus on, is building that relationship between the two of them, because Jessu has really good hold-up play. She can hold on to a ball, which gives Heather enough time with her pace to run into the space, hopefully created by Jess, and create those goal-scoring opportunities, which we know Heather is good at taking. I mean, she laboured up at the top of the pitch for long enough for us without getting any goals because the service of balls were so bad. But I think there is a potential for us to take some of the focus off that left side, off Katie, and put it on that right side if those two can develop a partnership. And maybe it's something that with Carusa in there more regularly, if she does become that player that she has been the focal point for Ireland, that they're then focusing on getting those balls into her. But that was like one of the only things I took away from that first half in particular, was those two linking up, and it was just always that final pass. Or there was a couple of times where, to be fair to Jessu, the ball just ran out over the end line, but she did everything possible to get it back. So that's something that I thought we could look at.
Yeah, and it was that kind of night where just things didn't seem to go wrong. You know, yeah, like you said, Jessu dribbled it over the line one time, then Kieran did the same thing moments later. So it seemed to be nearly infectious, the kind of sloppiness that ran through the team. And it's hard like that, like we were saying at the start, it is hard then to pinpoint it, because it's kind of like the momentum, just that's the way the game is going. And they just weren't able to get out of that rut until half time came. And then I think whatever was said in the dressing room worked a little bit at least. I thought the first half of the second half, Ireland were a lot more improved, but obviously didn't get the end product.
I think if you split it up into different areas and acknowledge that on the night no one performed well, but also no one person really deserves the credit for pulling the whole thing apart. If you look at defensively, we were stripped of our regulars that we know and trust. Wales, in my mind, clearly targeted crossing balls into the box because we didn't have that aerial threat of Louise Quinn in there to stop and head out those balls. And then she came on the pitch, and within about 5 minutes she cleared about 5 balls with her head. I expected Caitlin Hayes to be a bit stronger in that, because that's the sort of role that she said she wants to play on the team. I think if you bring back Fahy, Quinn, even Mannion into that, we're definitely a lot stronger defensively. Then you look at midfield, and you're missing, a creative player like Denise O'Sullivan. Sinead Farrelly as well is someone else that Karen suggested could go into that 10 role if she's back and she's fit. Now, she's never probably going to play a full 90 minutes for us, so we do need to have those options. Ruesha Littlejohn, really impressive last night.
Yeah, she was really good. She's
the only person who was properly pressing in midfield. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think so. And I think, I saw online somewhere it was kind of like they're doing a lot, but they're going nowhere. Basically, was what the midfield just seemed to be. They were working hard, but they just seemed to be that kind of step off every time, And they had really, really experienced players in their Wales, with Ingle and James, and then Fishlock used to tuck in as well. So like they each have over 100 caps. So it was hard. I think a little bit maybe of, I don't know, was it inexperience or lack of leadership or what it was, but we just couldn't get it together. And, at times you just thought maybe we should have kind of just tucked in and just stayed defensively solid for a few minutes and try to keep a hold of the ball and work from there. But it just wasn't their day, I think.
So that bit does matter in terms of being a friendly. It's that they weren't at it from the start, even though, notwithstanding all the absentees that you're talking about, Kathleen, like that would concern you? Or again, is part of that like, if there was 3 points on offer for that, then the atmosphere would have been different. Katie McCabe would have been more into the game.
Yeah, I mean, she definitely wasn't in the game at all really last night. But I think it's worrying just in that not much had changed from Italy in terms of tactics and formation and that. Yet it seemed like completely different.
So easy for Wales to pick it apart.
Yeah, they just, and Wales, I think there's experience in League A, although they weren't successful. They only got 1 point in their 6 games, but they were playing at such a higher level than we were over the course of the autumn. Like, we were playing against a lot lower ranked teams where, we had all, it all went our way really. And obviously the test against Italy, I thought was good, and I thought would have been a good stepping stone and to prepare us for the Wales game, but it just wasn't the case.
But it's like the way we played against Italy went totally out of our heads. last night, in that against Italy, we were mature on the ball. There wasn't a lot of rushing. We were happy to build up, to retain the ball. Yes, Wales pressed us, but Italy are technically more gifted than that Welsh team. We made Wales look not world class, but we made them look very, very good. And not to take any credit away from them, they totally deserved the result and they got everything right against us. But they're not as good as they looked last night. And I don't know, was it that we had a false sense of where we were at after that Italy game and we thought it would just naturally come to us? There was definitely some mentality there that wasn't there on Friday, I think, because as you say, there was so little that had really changed between the 2 days or the 2 games. And that's the thing that really worries me, because
Yeah, exactly. I think maybe, I don't know whether it's a case of management will look at that and see how they prepared. Did they do anything differently within the camp, or just it could be small margins, like how they were prepared for it. I don't know.
One thing that Karen pointed out this morning, which I thought was quite interesting, I hadn't really thought about, she said that normally when you're on a pitch and you have a few more experienced players, but if you look at that midfield and the forward line, probably Rush is the most experienced player in there, but normally you would have a couple more. And with how many people are either coming back into the camp after long-term injuries, or else they're quite young and just starting out their experience in Ireland, she was wondering, was it a case of it was difficult for the more senior players to really get in people's faces and be like, come on, like someone needs to stand up here and someone needs to really change this, because this is just like not acceptable. And you saw Katie get frustrated once or twice, but she wasn't shouting at players the way she normally would be. And I didn't really notice the team communicating in the way we got accustomed to during the World Cup. I lost count of the amount of times I saw different players shouting at each other, but it was all to help them and keep them motivated. Wasn't a whole lot of that last night that I noticed.
Yeah, it did seem very disjointed, like they weren't really kind of hunting in packs. They were, maybe the forwards are going and then followed again like 2 seconds later by midfield, whereas it should be all done in one movement. And it just, like you said, maybe it was that kind of lack of senior players on the pitch. I do think that not having Niamh or Louise Quinn, or both, on the pitch really did impact us in the first half, because I can't remember a game like going back to I'd say at least 15 years, before either of those weren't on the pitch and starting and playing 90 minutes. So
you had 50 odd caps.
Yeah.
What's the difference between a qualifier and a friendly?
There shouldn't be much difference, but I suppose there is really when
like honestly.
There's
obviously at the start of your career, early on, every single cap matters. But like cap 47, a friendly against Wales, it's kind of a bit miserable. Are you as into it as a World Cup qualifier?
Well, it's hard to know. I mean, I think
it's a bit even just about the communication with each other. You're not killing each other if someone makes a mistake.
I think I always probably did,
right?
But I know. In fairness, like I suppose, the points weren't on the line, and the stakes weren't that high. But at the same time, and I mentioned it, there's just such competition in the team now that players themselves know that if they don't perform, there'll be someone else taking their place, and that alone.
Can I ask you about that though? That doesn't seem to be totally the case. We seem to know 8 of our starters, 9 of our starters.
Yeah, I would go with that. But then you have those 2 or 3 spots up for grabs, and when players are so versatile and they can move around, you do end up having a defender competing with a midfielder, or with a defender or a forward as well. So. Yeah, it's all, I think every player does feel that pressure to perform, but it just, like you said, it just didn't seem to be there. That the kind of urgency wasn't there last night, and it was in the second half when there were 2 goals down.
Yeah. Okay.
I think the amount of players that are returning does throw the starting team into question a little bit more. During the World Cup, we were generally pretty certain about the starting 11. There might have been 1 or 2, not even 1. I mean, Rusha and how fit she was probably one of the big questions for a lot of it. Whether Lucy Quinn would come into the side was always a big question. And obviously we saw Rusha have probably one of the tournaments of her life in the end, and Lucy Quinn becoming a really important figure. Surprised we didn't see more of her, actually. over the course of this international window, because I think she does, as much as she's good, she does need that time to develop into what her role is in the team. I think the likes of Jessu coming back throws things up a little bit. When Sinead Farley comes back in, where are these players going to lie? And I
What would you do? What would your starting 11 be? Certainly that front six.
I think, off the basis of how Jessu has played over the last couple of days and what I've seen from her at West Ham, I would give her a starting position. I still think, in terms of that front player, Carusa has earned her stripes at the moment. I don't know, have Leanne or Amber done enough, but also we haven't seen enough of either of them. You know, Amber is quite difficult to watch her play over in the women's Eredivisie. Like, you kind of have to watch very dodgy streams, so it can be difficult at times. And then Leanne just hasn't been playing for Liverpool. Apart from that, you'd obviously have Denise in there. I think, I'm not totally sure who I would have linking up with Katie on the left side.
Yeah, it's kind of a wide open spot, I think. She has been mixing it up between, obviously, Izzy and Leanne. And yeah, I thought
Izzy is probably ahead at the moment just on playing minutes.
Yeah, and I thought, you know, at the start last night, given that, you know, Leanne was going to be an inverted winger and that she would tuck in and kind of, I thought we'd see a lot more of Katie overlapping last night, just given, you know, like I said, that Leanne would tuck in, but it just didn't seem to be the case. Whereas I think sometimes with two left footers up that left side, you don't get the overlapping as naturally as you could have last night. But again, it just didn't seem to transpire that way.
The glass half full reflection on the last couple of games is that they had more possession last night than they did in the Italy game. The Italians dominated the ball, whereas Ireland dominated the ball last night just on percentages. In League A, Ireland are going to be the non-dominant team when it comes to possession. So at least there's that. When it comes to the two performances, the Italian one was better, and that probably closely replicates what they're going to face over the next 6 games.
Yeah, and it does go to our strengths. You know, like we have always been defensively solid when we're playing teams higher ranked than us, you know, and we know then that we can just hit them on the counter. And I do think, yeah, like sometimes when we're playing those teams who are ranked in and around us, it can be difficult for us. So yeah, we could see kind of good performances, hopefully. The draw next Tuesday is just going to be so interesting to see who we're lined up against, and, you know, potential showdowns at the Aviva as well. So it really should bring a lot kind of more interest in the team. I kind of feel like we haven't piggybacked enough on the World Cup success, you know, not to see Tallaght sold out was a little bit disappointing in a way, but again, you know, we have to factor in it's Tuesday night as well, and the Aviva, when we had that big crowd, was a Saturday afternoon, so all that scheduling and stuff needs to be looked at if we are playing games in the Aviva, I think.
Can you just imagine drawing Spain and having to go to the Aviva and watch Aitana Bonmati absolutely rip us to shreds after last night? I would say, I was half joking this morning that I would kind of just pay to watch her kick a ball around for 90 minutes and Spain could just take the points.
But we'll be inclined to kick her early and often in a way that, like last night, it's Wales and Tallaght. We're not. No, yeah, it's fine, but we're not going to.
Well, that was the annoying thing about last night. Our physicality is normally really good, but we were just letting players shove us off the ball consistently.
Which would suggest, right, that the changes, the injuries, the late cry-offs and the friendly had more of an impact on than anything else. And that's a learning curve for management, is that you're going to have to fake it till you make it in these friendlies. Otherwise, they're kind of pointless.
Potentially, yeah. But I've never noticed it being an issue for us before to be bullied like that by a team who should be relatively on par as to where we are, and for us not to turn up. And I wonder, maybe it's just a symptom of the last couple of months, and when you have played in front of 80,000 in the opening game of a World Cup, it's a very different feeling than having to go play a friendly against Wales, and that's never something that we've had to contend with before. But we were also able to do it in those Nations League games where I know qualification was on the line for League A, but...
And an unbeaten record, and trying to get the new manager in. Like, there was a load of stuff to play for.
But there's also that unbeaten record was still there, and the public perception of this team going into the toughest qualification period that we're probably going to have, that stuff does matter.
Yeah, well, we'll see. it certainly it does. It is going to be an important point of conversation if they were to lose a couple of games quickly. You'd be like, oh, the slide started not in the Italy game.
And that Italian team beat Bommati and Spain last December as well.
They also got hammered 5-1 by England last night.
Italy did?
Yeah.
Oh, God. Okay, right.
Latwoman Moy scored her first ever England goal within 6 minutes.
England's slightly better than us at football at the moment.
Can we get Spain and Italy in the group, or it doesn't go by standings? They will both be top seeds, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly which pot they're in, but I'd actually love to see us
We could
draw
get Spain and England.
Yeah, I think we'd rise to the
Not yet, so they could
bring
get
it
both.
on. Exactly.
Yeah.
Maeve, good stuff. Thanks a million.
Thanks.